Well, welcome to our Masters of Travel series. My name is John Werner. I'm the president of MAST Travel Network. We are a network of almost 1,000 travel advisors located primarily in the Midwest. And today, I would like to welcome our guest, Jeni Chaffer of Journeys Travel. And Jeni is an expert in planning destination weddings. And she has helped so many couples over the years plan just the ideal destination wedding in places all around the world. And so welcome, Jeni, to our talk this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to do this today.
Well, that's great. And you know, in this environment, of course, that we're in right now, destination weddings are still happening in some places, but things I know have been postponed and so forth. But it's such a big business. And really, when you think about maybe 10 years ago, it was a much smaller segment of the travel industry, but it has really become so popular, and brides and grooms can have just great vacations out of it as well, and their wedding couples. But you know, in this environment of COVID-19 pandemic, what is the typical size of destination wedding groups that you are talking to these days?
So pre-COVID, the groups normally ranged from, I'd say 40 to 60 people were average. I think for the foreseeable future, groups are going to be closer to the 20, 30 person range. So approximately say 15 rooms if you were doing an all-inclusive. And there's many reasons. Some of it has to do with the fear of travel, fear of flying, fear of going outside, period, at this point with COVID. But we're also seeing that the resorts are still kind of deciding what they need to do on their end to have social distancing. Some of their venues for receptions aren't as large as they need to be unless you go inside to a ballroom. And for the most part, people are going to Caribbean, for example, to get married to not be in a ballroom like they would have to be at home. So a lot of that has to do with COVID more than anything. I do think the numbers will continue to rise as we, get those protocols in place. People are starting to travel again. We've had several people going and lots of new inquiries. So things are looking up.
That's great. That's good to hear. So what destinations are popular right now, and when do these groups want to go? You said you are planning some new destination weddings for down the road, and what kind of time frame are people looking at?
So Mexico and Caribbean are still the most popular. That also is due to the restrictions. A lot of the other countries we have inquiries to are just still so uncertain. And even Hawaii, people cannot travel there without being quarantined, so they're kind of afraid to plan for that at this point for a large group. The destinations with Mexico and Caribbean resorts opening sooner too, they also are putting those protocols in place, but they're able to change them. So we've seen a week by week change to some of the programs. Most couples that are calling right now are still looking for 21. I have had some 22 inquiries. We've not had any weddings for fall. I do still have 2 scheduled, and they are still on track to travel, but no new inquiries for 2020.
Sure, yeah, makes sense. You know, in destination weddings, you mentioned Mexico and the Caribbean, which a lot of people would automatically think are great destinations for destination weddings. And yet all over the world, there are really fun, beautiful places to go. And some of them come to mind. I know destination weddings in Bali or the Maldives, Greece, Africa. I've seen, weddings planned there. What are you finding to be some of the most unusual destinations that you have planned?
The ones that I have planned so far have been Italy, Greece, and in Fiji.
Okay, yes.
Those, I think all 3 of those offer just an an element of I don't know, element of being different, something, especially now, seems like there's a trend that one couple goes and then all of their bridesmaids and groomsmen start planning their weddings and they all want to do something different. So after the third or fourth one maybe has gone to Mexico or the Caribbean, they start looking elsewhere.
Yeah, I can see that happening. So have you seen also an interest shift from domestic destinations versus international? What kind of destination weddings take place in the United States?
This year, there has been a lot of questions for domestic weddings. We only had one switch to a domestic location. Most people, though, if they have their heart set on international and there's any way they can get there, that's what they're still planning to do. We've seen a rise in Florida weddings. Of course, that was before there was a rise in cases there, which put a damper on that again. For couples, though, that have someone that maybe can't travel or there's a passport issue or something like that, Florida is usually the top request. Some of the beaches there are phenomenal. We have wedding planners in place with resorts as well as offsite locations that can work with the couples to plan those as well. And from a lot of places, if there's a reason someone can't fly, it's a relatively easy drive.
Okay, that's good. Any mountains and desert resorts? Do those often come to mind?
We've have had past weddings. We haven't had any recent inquiries, but past weddings in Scottsdale, and as well, we always do several in Las Vegas each year.
Oh, okay, sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What would you say is the percentage of, versus, let's say, a first marriage or a second marriage or even a third marriage? Does the whether it's a first or second marriage, does that also come into play for a destination wedding? Meaning, does some people think, well, it's my second marriage, maybe I won't have quite as big of a party as I had the first time around? Does that come into mind on planning like trips like this?
Sometimes for a lot of the first weddings, what I find is that the couple may want it, but they still have that tie to a parent or grandparent that either they can't go, the other person is not able to travel, or there's just a lot of naysayers and the couple isn't ready to approach that, and so they go with the traditional wedding at home. When it's normally a second or third wedding, they realize that it really is about them and they just do it anyway. We are finding, though, with second weddings, the groups tend to be larger because they have, they have a bigger friend base that has the funds and time available to take away from work to go.
Sure. Now, I believe you've also planned some LGBTQ weddings, and any difference in the way, destinations that are chosen? Are they really, do you have to take other things into consideration?
Yes, you do, actually. I am certified with, it used to be called 14 Stories. It's now Equality Institute, and it is an LGBTQ certification. It's not just about working with the couples, but it comes down to what your contract says, how you market, how you are talking to the couple, but it's much bigger than that. It's to make sure you're partnering with destinations, because there's some destinations where it's still illegal, resorts that will accept anyone on their property, and the resort, as well as the staff on resort, the transfer drivers, making sure that all of them are going to make your couple feel like they're and their guests feel like they're VIPs, and not have anyone have any qualms about going or if they'll be treated differently. There's a lot more countries that are accepting, but first the country has to accept, and then we have to wait for it to trickle down and all the staff to be trained. Yeah. But that is something with being certified, it really does set you apart so that you have those relationships and can stay on top of those changes.
Yeah, it sounds like a great certification to have.
Mm-hmm.
So you can specialize in that too. And so given the policies, the airline's policies of temperature checks and face masks, are some destination wedding groups just talking about driving? Again, we go back to the domestic travel or domestic destinations. Are they talking about driving instead of flying?
Sure. When this began, I would have said yes without question. Couples were looking to change to Florida, like I mentioned before, but for the most part, after having discussions, after the numbers spiked when you saw people going to Florida beaches in droves, most of them have gone back to flights. Either if they're staying domestic, they're still taking flights to, say, Scottsdale, Las Vegas. We had some requests for Sonoma area in California. So I don't really know that driving is as important as just getting on a plane. The planes have all of the airlines across the board have such good protocols in place. We've had several people flying already reporting back that they actually felt safer on the flights than they have at their local stores.
Okay. All right. That's great. That's great to hear. What are your favorite destinations for planning a destination wedding? And what were some of the most fun weddings you have planned?
Well, that's a hard one. Top of my list is Mexico. There are so many properties there, and people automatically think Cancun, but you have Cancun, Riviera Maya, Cabo, Punta Mita, Merida, Puerto Vallarta, so many different locations. We have off-site villas that we use, cenotes that people can get married in, and we do weddings both on resort and off. So there's so much there, which also lends to the guest's perspective. There's a lot of price points. So when you're planning the destination wedding, that's something we work through with the couples is not what do you think they will want to pay, but what do you want to offer? And then we piece the resort or the offsite location to fit what the couple's needs and wants are, but also what they think the guests are going to look at from a price standpoint. So it gives you a great variety. As far as my most fun weddings, that's even hard to choose. My favorite wedding was in Fiji. It actually was a first marriage, and honestly, they decided that they did not want to have to deal with the family's issues at home, and so it was a small wedding. It was just them and one other couple, but they had always wanted to go to Fiji, so we ended up just turning it into a small destination wedding. Mm-hmm. My most fun wedding was probably in Punta Mita, and it was an Indian wedding. Oh. And if you know anything about Indian weddings, they are not only a week-long affair, but there's also 3 ceremonies, and there's lots of cultural aspects that have to be dealt with, as far as having a room for certain things and having a horse to bring the groom in, but watching the 2 cultures combine, because she was American with an Italian background, watching those 2 cultures combine, trying to figure out how to interweave those with myself, the couple, and the on-site coordinators. It was just an amazing experience to see it all come to life.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have been to an Indian wedding myself, and a very colorful, beautiful ceremony. And I know there's a lot of parts to it. So it's, I'm sure that was a great experience. What would you say then is, I know you do a lot of marketing on social media. And so as far as your most Instagrammable photo, where was that taken?
Fiji comes to mind, but I think Instagrammable and iconic would probably have been in Greece.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
On one of the islands?
In the Santorini.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You can't beat that view.
No, just incredible. Yeah. So you do work with on-site wedding coordinators in a lot of the destinations. Are you always planning the whole wedding, including the ceremony parts, or do you find that some couples just want you to handle travel arrangements and those logistics, and they'll handle the rest themselves? I mean, what's kind of the percentage that you see couples doing?
I offer a variety of packages to my clients, actually. I do work hand in hand with the on-site resort coordinators and the off-site planners. With my lowest package that I offer, I handle all travel arrangements, secure the wedding date, and make the initial arrangements. Other plans, I offer planning services. Most couples, though, use the planning services, maybe not my on-site coordination, but at least so that I am in charge of getting them the information, in charge of the timeline. I also suggest different packages, add-ons, preferred vendors, different group tours. We handle a lot of the group excursions, welcome parties, things like that. Yeah. That's one thing I think a lot of advisors don't do, which is fine. Handling the travel portion of a wedding group is enough in itself. But I would suggest to people that you at least make that next step for the wedding coordination, to get them in charge with the resort planner or the an offsite planner. One of the things we see is that we end up with the frustrated brides because they may have talked to another travel agent, but then the travel agent has said, here's the website, go book the wedding. And they end up on Facebook trying to find out information, and they're just very frustrated. And I think it does a disservice to what we actually could be offering them.
Right. Well, I know in your case too, you have a lot of contacts in some of these most popular destinations. So there's a big advantage in knowing those on-site coordinators, even if the couple does want to have some control over that themselves. It still would be a big benefit to them with your knowledge and access and so forth.
Right. Yeah. As you know, from the travel side, the people that, go on Google and become an agent overnight with what they've read, most of that information is not correct, or it's an exception, not the rule. So is getting those relationships, that's always been the backbone of my business, is building the relationships with everyone. And I feel that's how we give the client the best wedding experience and the best travel experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So how important is it to have incentives for all invited guests to work with you versus in some wedding parties, some work with you, some go off on their own and they do their own thing. But there's a lot of reason for the couple to have all their invited guests to work through just one source.
Sure. I don't use incentives. I feel it comes from the conversations with the clients. They have to believe in what I'm there to provide. I connect with the guests in a variety of ways. I start with an email to the guests introducing myself, giving them the website that I provide and booking forms. I continually follow up with the guests, and I take that off of my clients. So that already gives them a reason and a connection. I do charge a fee also to anyone who plans to attend the wedding and doesn't book through me. The couple knows that up front and agrees to it as part of the contract. It's on the wedding website. Sometimes it's not from a price standpoint, but it may be that they're an employee of a resort we've chosen, and so they're getting a better rate that way that we can't match. So, but this enables the guests or the client, the couple, to get credit for that and not lose out on anything. It is so much easier when everyone books through the same source. It's easier for the resort to keep things streamlined and organized as well. And really, it does come from the clients, because once I have that connection, their favorite phrase becomes, I don't know, just call Jenny. Yes. And it seems to keep the clients calling and booking.
Well, I think that is a very important point, because it does take a lot of that stress and time off the couple and lets them concentrate on the other things that they need to be doing. And I think that's very important.
Right, because with weddings, too, a lot of times, half of the people have not traveled before. We generally find 40 to 50% don't have a passport, and if they have traveled out of the country, it's been many years, and definitely things have changed. So they have a lot of general questions that the couple really shouldn't have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings it up to one of my final questions, I guess. I just thought of this in terms of uh, what would you say is the mix of people that are citizens of foreign countries that you've had to also work with because they're going to the wedding. What kind of countries have you of some of the guests, I guess, the invited guests you've also had to work with?
The largest one has been India. With the Indian weddings, there is a lot of their family members that are still residing in India. Other than that, it's really been the UK, that area, Europe and the UK, and that's generally more friends coming in than family. I would say, probably 80% of our couples are second, third generation, if not more. So most of the family is already in the States and has a U.S. passport.
Okay. All right. Good. Do you have any other, final tips for anyone getting ready to plan a destination wedding?
A couple things, actually. One is there's no time too short. I have done a wedding in less than 30 days. It is stressful, and you have to be available to make decisions, but it can be done. But it's also not too far. We're already seeing some resorts have 2022 dates that are sold out. So generally, we find 12 to 14 months seems to be the average of what people are planning. But even if you're down to 9 months, there's still plenty of time. One of the things that I find from bridal shows is that when people come to a bridal show, especially in the spring, they're just newly engaged. They really don't know what's going on yet. And I always just tell them, take my card, call me later. When they sit down and look at the dollar amount for having domestic weddings is a lot of times when they change their mind and decide that they want to go ahead and do a destination wedding somewhere. In doing that, they generally save money, but they're also afraid they are too short of time to plan something like that. And if you're trying to do it yourself, yeah, you would not have enough time to do that. But with working with professional, both on the travel and the planning side, it's easily doable. And like I said, we try to take the stress out of it by having those connections and being able to tell you who we've worked with in the past and what they have to offer, so that you're not having to spend your time hunting.
Right. Yeah. Great points. Well, Jenny, I really appreciate your time today and your visit with us, and the fun work that you get to do. I know that it could be stressful and everything, but making people happy on one of their most special days of their lives, I think can be quite rewarding. And so we really appreciate your insight today, and look forward to when travel really gets back into full swing.
Thank you for having me today.
All right, well, take care. Thank you.